Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Into this story of difficult circumstances and her utter joy, jumping up and down and laughing. That's good practice instruction. Appropriately tender, appropriately joyful. So during a benign moment, was it a benign moment? Or was it an extraordinary moment? Seems like an extraordinary moment. Not what happened, but we can experience this. And a lot of times, very simple encounters happen during sesshin. We're sitting with our cup of coffee or a cup of tea during a break, watching the steam rise off, seeing the reflection of our faces or the reflection of the room on the surface. Benign moment, but an extraordinary moment. So when we sit, practicing showing up for our lives, showing up for what's right here, without adding anything to it, without needing more from it, without needing others to change, without needing things to be otherwise. And in this particular person's story, the phrase that she used was "let it be." Let it be. And we can experiment with that. Playing around with this since reading this story. It's fun to play around with these teachings. And I was going for a run. And I've been running for, I came to it actually in my late 20s. So I've been running for quite some time. And I started doing it, and I just like the idea. It's like, yeah, it seems kind of cool, bipedal movement. It's pretty simple. I think I can get into that. And so I determined to get into running. And it's interesting, there's so much going on when I run, or when we run, or even when we walk, when we sit upright. There's so much going on. So the beauty of doing something for a very long time is it can reveal itself to us. That's why we love cooks and restaurants that have been honing a craft over and over and over and over again, because there's so much nuance. When to put the bread in the oven. When this particular vegetable has had enough of a sear, it's been browned enough to be able to turn over. So paying attention. So I was going for a run, and one thing that I've noticed when I run, sometimes it's really hard, and sometimes it's relatively easy. And sometimes I run pretty fast, and sometimes I run pretty slow. I mean, relatively speaking. So I was turning this phrase, let it be, let it be. And sometimes as a runner, I feel like I'm the one running. I gotta move my legs, I gotta breathe, I gotta stay upright, I gotta keep going. I feel like I'm the one running. And sometimes that is sort of the orientation. I'm needing to put effort into running. And sometimes running can become flow, where I'm just more or less watching my body run. Just letting the body run. So today, I was using this phrase, let it be. And it's interesting, I've seen this so many times in my running over the years, but it never seems to not be extraordinary, which is there's this sense of I'm running and I'm moving my legs, and also if I relax enough while I run, there's something about just the perpetual reflexes of the body There's something about, oh, I can just trust my body to do this running for me. And if I find the appropriate cadence with the energy that I have, and I just let my body move through that, pretty soon the running starts to happen on its own. So let it be. And as I was running, letting my body be, I noticed, oh, right, interesting. My right shoulder is pulling forward a little bit, and I can see the way that constricts my left side. Oh, that's so interesting. And that's particularly interesting for me right now because I've had this kind of cramp in my low left lat that has been somewhat persistent. And to see while I'm running, just letting my body do exactly what it does without interfering, I saw, oh, interesting. So this shoulder goes forward, and then what does this shoulder? Oh, it pulls down and back. Oh, and that's exactly where that spot is. What happens if I just let my body continue to run, but I pull this shoulder back ever so slightly? Oh, interesting. There's a little bit more space on this left side. Yes, this is how I run. It is. And not always. But our lives are so extraordinary. They're actually really interesting. There's so much going on. And, going back to the original phrase that I wrote, that I read. The original reading is about medicine. What is our particular ailment? What is our particular disease? And what is Dharma practice asking us to do with that particular situation? So perhaps it's to laugh and throw your pen to the ground. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe it's to turn a phrase over. Another thing that I found really interesting about this particular story is it's unclear whether she was skillful when her house burned down and when her son fell into the water. It's unclear. Perhaps she was very skillful. Perhaps it was, let it be, went right over to the side of the river, checked, how you doing? Oh, you jumped in. Oh, okay, they were mistaken. Got it. Maybe when her house burned down, let it be. And how do I respond to this blazing fire? Where are my kids? Where's my husband? Are the trees near the house? Are those going to be okay? What can I do here? So perhaps she was very skillful in this way. And perhaps she was unskillful. Perhaps. And the reason that I like that as a possibility, that perhaps she was unskillful in this moment, because that's really relevant to us in our practice. We're trying this on. We're trying to live according to the Buddha Dharma. We're trying to orient ourselves to our aspiration. And so often, what can stand out to us is the mistakes that we make. And so often, our response is to see that as some kind of affirmation. Like, yeah, see, I knew I was doing it incorrectly all this time. But that's not where our story ends. And actually, perhaps we can bring in the phrase, let it be to that phenomenon. Let it be. Oh, here it goes again. Here's my habitual response again. Here's the habitual response again. Oh, maybe it's not mine. And our story doesn't end there. Our story ends with her amazing awakening experience. So I see this as an invitation if we go with the unskillful framework. And I appreciate how unclear these koans are. I do. Because it requires some participation. Do I like it? Do I agree with it? Do I dislike it? Do I disagree with it? Oh, many of the elements are absurd. Many of the elements don't make sense. And it requires a participation. What's going on? So one reason that I really enjoy the unskillful framework in this is because it's so human. It's so human. She's doing her best. She's doing her practice. And then later she has this amazing awakening experience. And that awakening experience wasn't contingent upon whether she did it perfectly before. That's what I love about this. I see this as an invitation to bring the utmost sincerity to our practice, the utmost sincerity to our lives, and actually allow sincerity to be the place from which we do our practice. Sincerity, what do we mean by sincerity? Sincerity, it's heartfelt, it's earnest. It's recognizing I'm just putting one step in front of the other in the circumstances of my life, and I'm committed to just doing the best I can. Sincerity. And this theme, if you look, you'll find this throughout Zen teachings, throughout Chan teachings. Sincerity, sincerity, sincerity. And our sincerity protects us. Another element of the story that I really enjoy is that it sounds like she was just doing one practice over and over and over and over. There's a story that I really love. I don't know its origins. I've heard it in a few different places about how spiritual practice can be like digging a well. You know, we want to dig a well deep enough so that we can eventually find water. And this particular story or allegory, this is typically what we do is we dig just a tiny hole here. We're like, not so sure. Then we go dig a tiny hole here. Not so sure. And then dig a tiny hole here. Not so sure. And so this particular story serves her as a reminder. Just take that practice. Do that practice. Over and over and over and over and over. Until the water comes forward. I've said this before, but I think stories, enlightenment stories, are helpful, and I also think they're tremendously unhelpful. Because they get at us, you know, they get to this tendency that we have in our culture of like, I'm doing this so that I can have an experience. And so often in our practice, well, this certainly isn't it. This certainly isn't it. And yet within our tradition, there are teaching stories where, you know, the least likely thing is held up as the Buddha. A poop wiping stick. Have you ever heard this story? Buddha. That's challenging. That's evocative. A little gross. But what's the teaching?
Would you share the story?
Huh?
Would you share the story?
Oh, I don't know the story well enough, but I'll flesh it out a little bit.
Okay.
So, and this means that I'm gonna go check it out later, and then hopefully we all go check it out later. And then we'll pun intended. Yes. Double meaning. So the story as I know it, and I don't know this story well, somebody approaches a teacher and says, what is Buddha? And the teacher says, a poop wiping stick. Apparently, at the time that this was written, sticks were used sort of in the same way as toilet paper is used. I've never spent the time to verify this. I don't know. So, in other words, the Buddha is what we generally consider to not be Buddha. Could be one way of looking at it. And holy moly, that's right here. That's right here. All verbal teachings are just to cure diseases, because diseases are not the same, the remedies are also different. That is why it is sometimes said that there is Buddha, and sometimes said that there is no Buddha. So back to enlightenment stories is helpful and enlightenment stories is not helpful. Perhaps if we find that we have some kind of a disease, some kind of an ailment around enlightenment stories and enlightenment experiences, check it out. Investigate. Where is the medicine there? Is it to have the courage to say, well, perhaps this very moment is the ground of awakening, and this moment is the awakening moment. Challenging or not challenging. That changes things, doesn't it? Can you kind of feel the difference in that? This is the part where you're supposed to nod, but you didn't. So that's good information for me. So, in other words, going through our lives, having the courage to say, perhaps this is what I've been looking for all along. Perhaps this is what I've been looking for all along. I don't need to be improved. I don't need to be changed. Perhaps this is the moment. Can we let it be the moment? Can we let it be the moment? And, speaking from experience, a lot of times the answer is absolutely not. But we practice. But then we have moments where we're like, oh, perhaps this is the ground of awakening. Perhaps this is the very Buddha mind. Perhaps the grief that I carry, perhaps it's not separate from this one fabric of which I get to be a part. So I want to spend just a little bit of time focusing on the phrase, let it be, playing with that a little bit. And then I'd like to encourage people, don't get ahead of me on this. I'd like to encourage people to consider what a practice phrase could be for you. I'd like to encourage you to see what a practice phrase could be like for you. And homework for the next week, turn it over, see what happens. But I really shouldn't have said that. That wasn't the most skillful. But we'll have time to explore that. First, let's explore let it be. Let's explore let it be. So let it be. Let it be. What are we talking about here? When she's turning this phrase over, let it be. What are we talking about? Well, perhaps we can just start with the word let. So allow could be another word. to leave, so to allow experience. And this gets to really the heart of the root of our challenges. Not that the world doesn't have challenges, that the sort of exacerbated feeling of challenge that we experience is pointed to in this particular sentence. Let it be. So let, allow. So often we get involved. Something comes up and we don't want it. Someone shows up. We don't want them. And so on a somatic level, we push it away. Within our body, we push it away, we resist it. Nope. Or, ooh, I want this. I want to hang on to this. So let it be. Allow our experience to be as it is. There was a Vietnamese nun who visited Minnesota Zen Meditation Center twice, Venerable Tuong Bach. And she had this really great kind of clear diagram. She said, when we find that we're attached, we let it go. And when we find that we're not attached, we let it be. When we find that we're attached, we let it go. And when we find that we're not attached, we let it be. Really helpful teaching. Really helpful teaching. So when we find like, oh, I'm kind of doing the thing where I'm resisting, don't want this to be the case. She might say, let it go. What does that mean? Well, because we're focusing on the phrase, let it be. We'll just set that framework aside. Feel free to pick up that framework later if you think that's helpful. I think it's helpful. Picking up, let it be. So, oh, there's resistance going on. What happens if I just leave it alone? Oh. Hand relaxes, the heart relaxes, the body softens. I also love that this particular phrase says, let it be. Let it be. So we're talking about an object here. Let it be. So what's the object? Oh, maybe it's resistance. Maybe it's anger. And let it be. Which doesn't mean that we check out. Well, keep an eye on it. Let it be. And what's really interesting, Zen is a non-dual tradition. And non-dual includes dualism. It includes dualism. So as we sit with potentially an object, say resistance, let it be, letting resistance alone, there's less involvement between me and it. So automatically, the division between self and other starts to thin when we practice in this way. So there's this thing, and we don't want it. Let it be. Oh, there's softening there. And we may find in our sitting practice, we can get really still and let the whole universe be. And let ourself be. Let our emotions be. And get up and find, oh, things are a little bit different. I didn't really do much. Think, not thinking. Not, what kind of thinking is that? Non-thinking. Think, And this applies to emotions too. Think, not thinking. Non-thinking. Thinking arises. Let it be. Challenge, emotion arises. Let it be. A situation arises that needs our attention. Let it be. That's a great place to get involved. Having the willingness to first leave the whole experience alone. And our loved ones and friends will thank us for it. Oh, you're upset. Can I let that be the case? And then coming from a place of, okay, that's the case. How can I help? Oh, you don't want me to tell you how to handle this?
I would say if you let it be, then that could be worse if they're really upset.
And it's so true. So this let it be is different than just not participating in our life. So we're talking about a let it be that is curious, that is open, that is present in a whole body kind of way. This is the kind of let it be that we're talking about. Not like, who cares? The way is originally imperfect and all pervading, so I don't give a damn. Right? Because it's fine. So let it be. Be. Let yourself be. Leave yourself alone. Leave your heart alone. Let yourself express the Dharma in your way. Somebody once said of a teacher that I very much love, he was the weirdest person I had ever met. Was the weirdest person that I ever met, and became a student of this person. So there's something that we really appreciate about when we can see that somebody is coming from a place of let it be. Let yourself be weird. Let yourself be who you are. So now, before closing here, thinking about phrases we could potentially just try out as homework. So there's let it be. There is, and I want to hear, we'll transition into Q&A from here. So you'll have a chance to share if a phrase arises. And if one doesn't arise here and you later find one, I love hearing about this kind of stuff, so tell me later. So other phrases that we could use. Let it be. Let it go. As it is. The way is originally perfect and all-pervading. You are not it, but in truth, it is you. We don't have to come up with these phrases on our own. A very rich tradition that wants to help us. Tender. Basically whole. Fundamentally okay. Nothing missing.